Let's have a look at Katakuri. So he's going to be receiving a super evolution to our knowledge. I mean, I think at news time tomorrow, we'll probably get info about that. Or at least they'll probably announce the Super Pirate Rumble tomorrow. If they don't, then we've all been stooged. But pretty certain that he should be the next Pirate Rumble, Super Pirate Rumble character. So Katakuri is a Psi Fighter powerhouse. Nothing too crazy yet. And then you've got his captain ability. I mean, the chat's covering it a little bit, but it'll be okay. So the way that he works is a character needs to have 2 of these classes. If they have 2 of those classes, they get the full boost. So let's pull up the calculator. Actually, it is 1.825 squared. So if a character has 2 of these classes on the one unit, they receive a 3.33 times attack boost. But then they also receive a 1.4 times color affinity boost, which means that if you attack with type advantage, the character actually has a 4.66 multiplier. But that's the problem with Katakuri, is that while a character has a 3.3 base multiplier, if you attack with type disadvantage, it actually goes the other way too. So they only have a 2.38 multiplier. The thing is though, is I don't expect them to shy away from this type of build. I think that the build, it will probably stay the same, but I expect to maybe see bigger numbers, right? What do I think would be good? I think if they did, let's pull up a notepad so we can make some notes here. Like maybe a 2 times 2 for each class being a 4 times multiplier. I don't know, 4 times seems weak. Actually, what does the Limber Break Plus do? The Limit Break is 1.85. 1.85 squared. 3.42. 4.79. So it's better, but it's still bad. Let's say, with 6 plus, they could probably go to 4x. A 5.6 multiplier. I think that kind of works. 5.6 multiplier, that can work. I think this might be the multiplier that we see with his 6 plus. But remember, he has a limit break expanded captain, so I think that the multipliers have to be a bit higher. So what happens if we go like 2.1? Because they did really obscure numbers here, 1.825. So what if they did like a 2.125 squared? A 4.5 multiplier? That can work. Equals 4.5152 basically, multiplier. And then we have times 1.4. Okay, no, that's too much. That's too much. You can't go 6.3 times multiplier. Surely not, right? Can they do that? No, I think that's too good. It's too strong. I think maybe, so 5.6, so maybe like a 5.75 multiplied by 4.52. So maybe a 1.27, maybe 1.3. I could maybe see that. Won't they make the color affinity 1.5? But you do realize that, though, that if they did... Okay, so let's say they do 2 times by 2, you get a 4 times multiplier, and if they made the color affinity 1.5, he becomes a 6x captain, right? I think a 6x captain is too strong. And yes, it is only with type advantage. I still think it's too good. Yeah, I think just a 6x is too strong. I don't know. The multipliers are really funky. I don't know how they're going to balance it between a base captain ability and then a limit break expanded captain ability. Like, they could make it very similar where, like, the multipliers, like, the color affinity multiplier stays the same, but then these numbers are just very slightly buffed. So if we do 4 times multiplier with a 1.4 color affinity, 5.6, it's probably what they're going to do, let's be real. But then maybe they go, instead of 2, maybe they can go 2.05 times 2.05 times 1.4. They might do that. 5.88. Obviously, it's very high, but that could work. But then he also makes strength psi recovery tandem slots beneficial, and then recovers 50% of the damage taken from enemies in the previous stage when you enter a new stage. Meaning that if you have double Katakuri, when you enter a new stage, you recover all the HP that you lost during that stage. It's pretty good, and it makes sense with his special ability because you actually want to tank damage, and his captain ability facilitates that. They could potentially give him more matching slots. I would like to see maybe a utility effect, but I think that this is already a pretty good utility effect. Maybe an HP boost I think would be kind of nice, giving him like a 1.2 HP boost. would be really, really good so that he can tank more damage. He's got more HP pool to play with. Reduce hunger inbuilt with his captain ability. That would be pretty sick, actually. I mean, it's not an effect that's that useful, because hunger in and of itself is a very uncommon debuff, but I like your train of thought. So captain ability, like, it's probably not going to be the most important component of the character. Well, for me personally, my Katakuri is level 150, Limit Break Plus. I'm very invested into this character, so I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with his captain ability. And to be honest, I think that the biggest change they're going to do is just the attack multiplier. Or what they could do is they could make him very similar to Carrot. If you guys remember when 6+ Carrot came out, instead of, you know, the character requiring to have both of these classes, it basically was just like, as long as the character has at least one of these classes, they get the full boost. So potentially they'll just scrap this and they'll be like, you know, boost attacker, fighter slasher, shooter driven powerhouse by 4.25 or something. But another thing that's interesting is that when V1 Katakuri received his super evolution, his classes changed. Now that is a bit of an oddity because the most recent super evolutions that we've had on Global, or just in Treasure Cruise in general, they haven't changed color, they haven't changed classes. Typically they don't do that. Obviously we had a bit of a weird one with Yamato, but you know, you kind of forgive that one. Basically most super evolutions that release these days are just buffs, straight up buffs to the character's abilities. They don't typically touch the typing or classes, but they did it with V1 Katakuri though, so I don't know, they might do the same kind of thing. But then you got the special ability, which is the part of the character that needs the most upgrades. 30 times damage taken before you launch the special in typeless damage to all enemies. So if the max cap, you have to take 200,000 damage, and if you do, he does 6 million damage when you activate the special. Now there's a couple of problems with this. Number one, 200,000 damage is really difficult to get in a piece of content. You're typically not going to be able to reach that unless if you go out of your way to stall for that ability. It's just not really feasible in a lot of content in today's day and age. Another thing is the fact that normal attacks only completely nerfs this whole effect, so that's obviously a big downside. Another thing is that the damage in and of itself is terrible. 6 million damage doesn't really get you that far. even if the enemy doesn't have normal attacks only, doesn't give you normal attacks only, enemies these days will have, you know, 20, 30 million, 40, 50 million plus, right? So this type of ability is just bad. He also gives you tap timing bonus damage. Oh yeah, another thing that just comes to my mind is that if the enemy has the red Haki effect, it actually removes the stored damage that you took. That obviously is another big problem, unless if they update his captain ability, where he has similar to like a Roger effect, where he can, like, one turn during the quest, resist the accumulated value blow away. Oh, that'd be really cool, actually, so you can store this. But then he does, like, the damage, and then he also does tap timing bonus damage. So the max that you can get is 6 million damage on activation, and then 3 million damage per tap timing bonus. With 6 characters times 3 million gives you 18 million damage tap timing. So you can see how the character works, but that's all the special does. It's pretty bad. They could go down a similar route to Doflamingo. So when V2 Doflamingo received his super evolution, this is another one that a lot of people were really excited about. The character was focused around overkill damage, and the problem is like, if you got normal attacks only, this does nothing. So he goes on to say, if you have normal attacks only, boost the attack of driven characters by 2.5 for 1 turn, makes those slots beneficial for 1 turn. I can definitely see them going down a similar route for Katakuri. Definitely possible. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably. But I would prefer it if he just provided a buff no matter what, and not say, if you have normal attacks only, then provide this ability. I would just like it if it just added an ability from jump, that you don't have to worry about having normal attacks only. Because sometimes, you know, when I was using V1 Whitebeard for his level limit break showcase, V1 Whitebeard has an ability that only activates if you have normal attacks only. And if you don't have it, you actually don't get, I think it's the orb boosting effect from his special. So that's a pretty big downside to the unit, in all honesty. Now, I think that what I think is going to happen, and I hope they don't go down this route, but I think it's very possible, is because the captain ability is so focused around color affinity, I think that they might give it, like, you know, provide like a 2.5 color affinity to the classes that he boosts for like 1 turn or something, or 2 turns. That is very possible, and probably would not be a good effect for the character. But what I said earlier, I think makes a lot of sense too, with like resisting the accumulated values blow away, so that you're able to tank more damage. Or maybe his special ability is going to give you a different boost, or different level of boost, different multiplier, depending on how much damage you've taken. That could also happen. But that's kind of another problem with Katakuri, is he's very slow. Because if you're so focused around tanking damage to make his special good, that obviously makes the accumulated values blow away absolutely terrible for this character, and it's just a way to waste time. Because if you're storing damage, he gets to the boss stage, he blows away your stored value. It's just pointless. So I hope that they maybe reduce this, maybe make it only 50k. After you take 50k damage, you get the full effect. That would be fantastic. Could you imagine, like, the enemy tries to blow away your effects and then you get a cut-in of, like, Katakuri's face? Oh my god, that'd be badass. Another thing as well about Katakuri that needs a bit of a change is his PvP. Dude, his PvP is so bad. What is it? Normal attack, power, full attack, attacks enemies with the highest attack. That's interesting. 50% chance to resist action bind. This will probably be 100% chance. And then maybe damage reduction against free spirit or cerebral or something like that. Level 6 attack to fighter slash a shooter driven powerhouse. This is okay. Well, I would like to, I mean, the problem with super evolutions and 6 pluses and level limit breaks is that the buffs that they give to Rumble are terrible. Like, they don't change too much. Like, I know with Kuzan and Sakazuki, they actually made them kind of okay. So I really hope the Katakuri is good. But, like, they'll probably make this, like, level 7 or level 8. And then I hope they add, like, a defensive buff or an HP buff. Probably defense would be better. I think defense would be way better. So for the Rumble ability, I think, like, level 7 or 8 attack. And then, like, hopefully, like, level 3 or 4 defense would be very good, especially because he boosts so many characters. Something that's really good about Katakuri, like 25 CT, that is super respectable, but the problem is it does like nothing. 1.65 attack to all enemies in a small radial range. So they need to buff this to, at a minimum, two times, and then make this like a large range. And then he also restores 25% of his HP. Like, that's actually really good. And he himself is a fighter powerhouse, so you'd probably build a powerhouse team with him. So powerhouse aren't super bulky, so the fact that you have a 25 CT that can self-heal as well as do damage, I think that this has the potential to be really good. In Rumble, it really comes down to the buffs that they decide to give him, really. But yeah, definitely attack and defense would be nice here. And then maybe, ooh, actually, you know what? It'd be cool if this was like 2x, large range, and then like 25% heal to self, and like a recovery heal to like a small radius around himself, so that like if there were characters that were near him, you could also get a healing buff to some of your allies too. That would be pretty neat. Yeah. And then of course his resistance will go to 100% surely, and probably resist damage against cerebral or free spirit would be my guess. But like honestly, Katakuri has a lot going for him. He's got a pretty nice kit, and I think they can do some really nice stuff with him. But I am kind of nervous as well, because they can do some really whack stuff and make him kind of pointless and useless. That definitely can happen. And especially because there's a character that was focused around doing damage with a special, where, you know, characters that are focused around doing damage pre-normal attacks only era, those characters are really hard to buff effectively, so it's kind of interesting.